Here's an unpopular truth for you here today. It's not the coronavirus or the quarantine or politics or systemic racism or the patriarchy or leftist crazies or any of the things that you say that are holding you back. The real reason why you haven't achieved the results that you want in your life is because of you and because of your self-sabotage, because of you not understanding how to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be in your life. So that's what today is going to be about. Are you triggered already? Well, that's not a bad thing, because when we have emotional investment in something, then we can work with that. So if you're sitting and feeling a bit triggered, stay with that feeling. We're going to unpack that, and we're going to get to the root of why you are holding yourself back from greatness in 2021, no matter what is going on in your life. What is up, my friend? I'm health expert Ted Rice, and I want to welcome you back to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm a coach to entrepreneurs, executives, and other high-performing professionals for over 20 years now. And I've helped a lot of people bust through roadblocks that they thought were keeping them from the next level of what they wanted to achieve. But beyond that, I've suffered my own victimhood. I've suffered my own limiting beliefs and being stuck and blaming other people. And today, and probably in the next few episodes, because I've got a lot to say on this, we're going to unpack this more and more and get to the root of what's stopping you from creating an amazing life in 2021 and beyond. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you about a survey that I'm doing. Here's the truth. I want this podcast to serve you the best way possible. I want this podcast to be your number one go-to podcast that answers the questions, talks about the topics that are relevant to you. But to do that well, I need to know more about you. That's why I've created my 2021 podcast survey. So here's the thing, and there's no tricks here. I don't need your email or anything like that. You just go to legendarylifepodcast.com/survey. It's completely anonymous. So if you want to tell me what's wrong with the show or what's right with the show or how it could be better, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/survey and fill out the survey. And if you're on our mailing list, we'll be mailing it out to you anyway, and you'll get it there. But in case you're not on the list, you've got to go to legendarylifepodcast.com/survey. And also, if you're on the list, check your spam box. A lot of emails, that's where they end up these days. Spam is just out of control, isn't it? Just crazy. All right, so let's jump into it. The truth about most of us is that we sabotage ourselves. Now, I spent time in Cambodia. If you don't know the story of Cambodia, they suffered a genocide in the 1970s. I think it ended in 1979, if I remember correctly, when the Khmer Rouge, the communist, extremist, and genocidal group, got taken out of power by actually the Vietnamese army, the North Vietnamese army. Sorry for another time, but what I learned when I was there, when I went to the killing fields of Cambodia in Phnom Penh and to the killing caves in Battambang, just a bit southeast from the capital, Phnom Penh, I saw things that really rocked me to my core. I shared some of that on this podcast, and so I won't go into details, but I saw some of the places where people were executed, not just people, but men, women, children were executed. And it profoundly changed me. And seeing how those people there, they're building back from what went on there. And if you don't know the story, which I won't go into won't tell the whole thing here, one of the things that the Khmer Rouge did is they took all the intellectuals, all the teachers, all the doctors, all the engineers, they took them out to the jungles of Cambodia to live in to live on farms, and started executing the elite members of society. In other words, the ones that promoted education, the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the business people. And you really feel it there because you see like, wow, education's a big deal there. And you see the effects of what happens when you execute a lot of the people who teach other people, a lot of the people who have higher education. And so people like that, they're really struggling on a different level than you and I. And I'm saying this because we feel that our struggle in the United States and other major Western countries like Canada, the UK, Australia, we feel like the issues that we struggle with are so insurmountable. But when you get outside the United States and you start looking back, you start to realize certainly some people in the United States, I can't speak for other countries because other big Western countries, I never lived in Canada, although I visited several times and really loved Canada, Toronto, Montreal, spent a few weeks in the UK, never been to Australia, although I got very close, but decided I wanted to spend it in Bali instead of Australia. But you really see, looking back, how we create a lot of the obstacles, that a lot of the things that we think are really the obstacles to us getting ahead in life are really procrastination, limiting beliefs. They don't really show up in our lives like in the story we tell ourselves. And I've been here. I guess one thing to say is that so many of us, we are victims, right? We're victims of a neglectful childhood, or even worse, an abusive childhood. Certainly that was my case on both ends, neglect and abuse. Some of us we're guilty. We're victims of abuse as we're growing up. Maybe you were picked on. Maybe it was because of who you were. Maybe it was because of the color of your skin. For me, I got picked on and beat up because I got bullied because I played Dungeons and Dragons. I also got bullied because I didn't conform in the schools that I went to. They were mostly Hispanic. And so I got beat up for being a white dude, for being a gringo. Some of us are victims of that. Some of us are victims of events that are outside of our control. For example, when I was 16, we had Hurricane Andrew destroyed where I lived, destroyed my house. Well, actually, it didn't destroy my house, destroyed my yard. My house actually did okay. We're victims of these things. Right now, we're victims of the coronavirus and what has happened. And the thing about victimization, the thing about the childhoods that so many of us lived that were less than adequate in terms of setting us up for success in today's world, is that as we start getting going in our lives, these things that come up for us, we feel like they're the things that actually sabotage us. And we indulge in our stories and we say, you know, I was on the right path. I was doing the right things. I was trying to pull it together, but then the coronavirus happened, or Trump got elected, or Biden got elected, or whatever the story is. The story matters less and less. And it's about how we react to things, how we sabotage ourselves. And I want to ask you, how many of your behaviors align with who you really want to be? This is the first place to start. This is the the question to ask yourself. How many of your behaviors don't align with who you really want to be? Because until you tackle this, you can't point your finger at anyone else, at society, at politics, at the coronavirus. Very hard to point your finger at something that is microscopic. But so much of our behavior, it doesn't line up with who we believe we are at our core and the values that we say that we have. And I want to ask you, think about that for a second, because one of the things, I want to talk about this for a second. One of the things that people say about people's actions versus their words, right? We've heard this a lot, that, oh, don't listen to what someone says, look at what they do. That tells you who they really are. Makes sense, doesn't it? And you probably believe that. But here's why I don't believe that anymore. I believe you need to pay attention to those actions, because those real world actions, that's what is going to affect you being in a relationship with that person. And I mean any type of relationship, friendship, dating, marriage, right? Doesn't matter. But those actions, those are the things that are going to affect you. However, here's how I think about it now. So many of us, We have values, we have beliefs, we have this person inside of us full of potential. It's the little child that's in all of us that knows no limitations. If you have children, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you see when your child is born and as they start to grow up, everything's a great time for them. They get to learn new things. They get to experience new things. They get so excited about so little, at least to us adults. But as they start to grow up, they hear, no, you can't do that more. Oh, no, you can't do that. You got to be careful about that. That's dangerous. You start to get programmed. And most of it, hopefully, comes from a place of love and from care and from protection. And some of it doesn't, for sure. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what the intentions were, because a lot of us, we end up placing some big limitations on ourselves. We say things, oh, that's unbelievable. Oh, I could never do that. And we think that the things that are so amazing and awesome in life, those are the rarities. That's not the norm. And it could never be the norm because that's not how life is. And we place limitations on ourselves. And how arrogant is it to be a person who maybe hasn't accomplished that much in life to say, oh, no, I can't do that. I know what I'm capable of. I can't do that. Really? Do you truly know what you're capable of? Have you truly pushed the limits? Most of us haven't even gotten close. It's so arrogant of us to do that. And is it why do we do this? Why do we self-sabotage? Why do we have these goals and then have behaviors that are out of line, out of alignment with what we want to achieve and who we believe ourselves to be at our core? Why do we set limitations on ourselves? Why do we come up with these excuses? I can't achieve something because of my gender, my skin color, because I'm too old, because I'm too fat, because, I can't do this. Now, some limitations, they're for real. For example, if you're too old to play professional sports or too short or not fast enough, that's not something that's in the cards for you. I'm never going to be a professional athlete. I've got too many injuries. I've got to train on my terms with my body. There's no way I'm going to be a professional athlete. But most of us, we don't want to become professional athletes. We don't want to become billionaires. We don't want to become Olympic gold medalists or even go to the Olympics at all. What do we want to do? We want to live an amazing life. We want to make enough money to have a good life. And for most of us, we're not looking for a supercar collection or several $20 million mansions all over the world. We want fulfillment, satisfaction. We want a good family. We want enough money to live a more free life, to live afford more than just paying the bills and to go on some vacations every once in a while. That's totally doable. We want to lose weight and keep it off for good. That's totally doable. We want a good relationship with our partner, with our children. That's totally doable. And one thing I want to tell you is where this self-sabotage comes from. It's from a lack of inner work. One of the first things that I do if I get into a conversation with someone like, oh, I'm having so many problems with my kids. I'm having so many problems with my husband. I'm having so many problems with my wife. I'm having so many problems at work. I'm having so many problems emotionally. I'm having so many problems with dealing with the coronavirus and the lockdown situation. I'm having so many problems dealing with the political situation. I'm having so many issues dealing with the injustice in our country. Cool. What are you doing? Who are you working with to help you with that? Oh no. I mean, I don't need help. It's like, okay, you don't need help. How have your results been dealing with this on your own? Well, that's what happens when you start asking questions. Because what most people are looking for is they're looking for confirmation. They tell you, oh, it's so hard. And then, oh, yes, it is so hard. It's so hard for me too. We're all looking for people to confirm our bullshit beliefs about the limitations that we set on ourselves and why we're not where we want to be in our life. And certainly, as I talked about at the beginning, some people are really stuck and they need super duper amounts of help. People in Cambodia, People in the lowest level, lowest socioeconomic levels in the US, those people need help. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're not struggling to pay you got a relatively new iPhone, maybe it's not the 12, but it's pretty new, and you got a computer and you're not struggling to pay your internet every month, and you probably spend too much time on the internet, especially on social media. It's not society that's screwing you up. It's the self-sabotage. And it's a lack of inner work that is the reason why you keep sabotaging yourself. And you may say, well, okay, well, what does that mean? And in our culture, we've been taught that you only seek therapy when you're really having trouble. I mean, when you're really at the breaking point, when you're about to commit yourself to an asylum or kill yourself, or, you go down a really rough road with using alcohol or some other drug. And coaching, oh man, what is that even? Who hires coaches? So funny, I had this conversation with, I think she was 24 years old, and she was talking about relationships and how they were so difficult. And I said, look, relationships are always going to be difficult, because she was complaining that she had problem after problem with the guy after guy. And it's like, look, I didn't say this exactly like this, but I kind of said, look, if every single guy is a problem for you, you got to look at, why do you choose these guys? Why are these the men that you're trying to get into a relationship with? And then and in your case, they screw up, or they turn out not to be so great, but you never look at yourself and your part in it. And then I said, listen, the key is having a relationship it's this. A lot of us, we get our relationship skills from our parents. That's the first relationship that we see play out in our lives. And for a lot of us, it's not that great. We don't have great role models there. They did their best. They did the best they could, but maybe they weren't so great with each other. Maybe there were a lot of problems. Maybe there was even abuse, maybe on one side, maybe on the other side, maybe on both sides. Or maybe they were working all the time, and it's not that they were bad role models. They just weren't around very much. That's a huge problem. That's what you would call neglect. Although it may have been unintentional. Maybe they didn't know how to make things happen for you financially, and ended up spending all their time working. Or maybe, this is my situation, my parents did well financially. They could have taken more time to spend with me, but they wanted to work, and then they wanted to come back and drink alcohol. That's what my whole life was until I moved out of the house. Yeah, sure, we did some cool things. We went on vacation, and we had nice Christmases or Thanksgivings, especially when my cousins would come down. It was amazing. But day to day, it was work all day, come back, don't talk to the kids. Let's sit down in front of the TV and eat dinner, and they'll drink alcohol and get wasted, and then retire to their room, read, and drink even more alcohol. Just wasn't around. Actually, in the times they were, they didn't model good behavior in relationships either. So I struggle with relationships a lot. And I told her that was my path. And to get past that, you just need to get the skills. But I can't get the skills from reading a book or listening to a podcast. I mean, some people might, and you might get a few ideas from a podcast or from reading a book, but ultimately, you've got to work with someone. You've got to work with an expert. You don't do marriage counseling by yourself. Or if you do, and if you're trying that now, well, you're getting exactly what you're paying for, which is probably not much. Books are great. Don't get me wrong. Podcasts are great. I love doing this podcast. People tell me it helps them. It's fantastic. But if we're really serious about doing inner work, we've got to invest, and we've got to invest deep. One thing I used to do when I was in Miami as a personal trainer, you've heard this story, worked with a lot of CEOs of, a lot of high net worth guys. And I worked with celebrities. I don't need to name drop them right now. But the truth is, I was struggling in my business. I was really good. I would spend a lot of money learning from experts, but I had tapped out my potential in getting better as a trainer. I was going to these things and I was improving just a fraction. Where I needed to improve was in myself, in my business. But what did I do instead? Spent money learning about biomechanics and biochemistry. And I'm glad I did it, but I look back and see if I had to do it differently, this is what I would have done. And on a more superficial level, I really wanted to be respected in Miami Beach as a person who helped people with health and fitness. And so instead of working on myself, what did I do? I bought $900 pair of shoes. I bought $300 pairs of jeans. I bought, $600 leather jackets, $200 shirts. I even experimented with some jewelry. My nice Tag Heuer watch, that was, 4K. And guess what? Nobody cared. They might have looked at me and said, oh, nice watch. Okay, now who are you? I had decked out my house, my $3,000 couch. I mean, that was a lot for me then and for most people. And guess what? It never did what I wanted it to do because I was only scratching the superficial. I wasn't willing at the time to dig deep. And if I had to do it again, if I could go back, I would have spent less money on learning the mechanical side of what I do, teaching exercise, biomechanics, nutritional biochemistry, exercise programming, all that stuff, anatomy, physiology. I would have spent less time on that and more time on communication skills, more time on business. That was the inner work that I was lacking for professional success. And for personal success, I spent money on all the things that I said, expensive ass shoes. I mean, so crazy. I ended up selling those shoes on eBay and didn't even wear them that much because they were so crazy, And I would have invested in therapy earlier. I would have invested in coaching earlier. Those are the things that help transform me to a different person. So there's two things here. There's two ways of doing inner work, I'll say. One is doing what you might call the healing. That would be doing therapy. That would be, if you wanted to, for example, I've been doing some energy healing here in Brazil. I don't even believe in it, which is a story for another time, but I've been doing some energy healing with this woman in Brazil. I've also been doing acupuncture, and she works on, she also talks to you and dives into the emotional side as well. I did breath work when I was in Mexico. Oh my gosh, that helped me so much. Cried my eyes out after those sessions. It really helped me get through that tough time when I was dealing with my dad's death and dealing with being alone in the world, in a way, right? So there's the healing aspects, and we all have something to heal from. All of us have something to heal from. All of us have some improvements at a deep level to work on, whether it was from your parents, whether it was from your peers, whether it was from society, whatever it is, we've all got something to work on there. And where are you stepping up and working on it? Where are you stepping up and taking care of it? Because the answer to making the world a better place, however you define that, is by, and this is my belief, of course, but by individuals taking responsibility for dealing with their stuff. Yeah, sure, the government should do things, right? But ultimately, nobody's coming to save us. It's all on us. Now, we can have help, that's different, but nobody's coming in to come and fix you. It's not like you have a broken bone, you can get a doctor to go and set it for you. Or have something, that needs to be taken out surgically and they can come and take care of it for you. Unfortunately, the soul surgery needs to be done by you. The healing needs to be done by you. Now that's the healing side. The other side is to challenge ourselves to get uncomfortable, guys. Got to get uncomfortable. Life happens outside your comfort zone. All those silly cliches, but you know what? They're true. A lot of people get stuck with this. A lot of people get stuck in their comfort zone. One of my favorite stories about my comfort zones or being stuck in a comfort zone is, how do you feel? Let me ask you this. How do you feel about hand-to-hand combat, doing jujitsu, hand-to-hand combat? You ever seen the UFC fighting in the cage? What do you think about going and doing that? For most people, brings up some fear. What do you think doing that with a bunch of trained professional guys or women, There's some really talented women that we've trained with who beat the guys, by the way, at the lower levels, at least. How do you feel about that? Most people, it brings up fear. And for me, it brought up fear too. And when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 28 years old, and I don't talk about this probably enough, but I was super scared. I was afraid of fighting because I'd been beat up and bullied in high school, actually not in high school, in junior high. Little bit in high school, and then, I'll tell that story another time, but I became a little infamous in high school. A story for another time. But it wasn't until I was 28 starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I really conquered this area of my life. And I attribute doing Jiu-Jitsu with the courage that I developed to tackle those bigger things in life. Because for me, I was abused by my mother when I was just a really small kid, 3 years old, 4 years old, getting physically abused by your mom. The one person who, no matter what, should have your back. Because it's like, if you get abused by your mom when you're that young, the world ain't a safe place. I mean, if there's one person who should have your back and should be good to you no matter what, it's your mom, right? And if you've suffered abuse from your mother, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go through life scared. I mean, your dad, okay, but your mom, man, that's rough. I went through life being afraid of other people, afraid of getting hurt. And you know what? That thing that I took with me, that fear of getting hurt, actually attracted more hurt into my life because people see you as the prey. It brings out the predator in people, especially when they haven't done their inner work, when they're coming from a messed up family. That's really the roots of like racism for me, or a lot of the injustice that we see. Hurt people looking for opportunities to hurt other people, hoping that if they hurt other people, they'll somehow heal themselves. But as Martin Luther King said, hate can't drive out hate, only love can do that. I can't remember his whole quote, but that's basically the gist of it. And I love that quote. It's like, that's where that's from, in my opinion. And when I went through that process and got more comfortable with it, fighting, that is, knowing that I could protect myself, I didn't have to worry about being hurt again physically or someone crossing that boundary with me. Because that's what that is. It's a boundary violation. It's a violation of another person to act aggressively towards them when they did nothing to warrant that aggression, right? We're not talking, in other words, not self-defense, right? And so I got comfortable with hand-to-hand combat, got comfortable with violence, got comfortable taking a beating, got comfortable dishing it out. I'm now, I guess I haven't talked about this that much, but I've got a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know so many ways of choking someone unconscious or twisting their joints in ways that God never intended that, it would take me a long time to count them all. Now, I'm not saying that to sound tough or anything, because believe me, I'm in Brazil right now. There's guys who were born on the mats, right? There are guys who are so good at it. I couldn't hang with them at all. But enough to make me feel secure for your standard, street punk who might try to aggress towards you. Super comfortable with that. But the truth is that I got to a point where that got comfortable for me. Fighting, combat, it got comfortable for me. It's not that I never felt nervous, but I had so much exposure to it. I knew the skills. If someone got into a wrestling match with me, I don't even know what, I don't even think about what I would do. I would just do it. But at the same time that I got super tough at jiu-jitsu, by the way, I went on to win. I wasn't a world champion or anything, but I won a lot more tournaments than I lost. But even while I was that good at this area, when it came to public speaking, I was still terrified. In fact, I was so terrified of public speaking. I remember this is when I was a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was back in school studying biology, I was probably about 31 years old. I was in school with a bunch of kids, because that's who goes to school, right? Mostly I was one of those 30-year-olds that went back to college. It was kind of unusual. Not unusual, it was fine, but it was interesting being with all the youngins. But I remember being in my biology class, we had a lab after, or it wasn't even in biology. It was like extra study time for this biology class. And we all read out of the book. And so I was in a group of people in this class and I had to read out loud. And I would get super nervous reading out loud to a bunch of people. Now get this, before I had read out loud, I was making conversation with people in the class. So on a one-to-one level, I was like, hey man, how you doing? Oh, what's going on? Oh. Because I felt, I'm like 30 years old. I'm a business owner. These are a bunch of kids to me and they're cool, but they're just 21-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 18-year-olds even. And so I felt really comfortable there. But when I was asked to speak out loud, my heart would start pounding out of my chest. Like it wasn't a panic attack because it wasn't freaking me out so much, but my heart was beating just as hard as running a full sprint. It was crazy. I still get a little bit of that. If I had to go do a talk on a stage, I might have a little bit of that. But this is in a group of people who I was already, making jokes with and everything, being the older guy trying to be cool, and then here I am, my heart's beating out of my chest, and I'm reading this stuff from the biology book, and my voice is shaking. And what I'm trying to get at here is, it's not about what you've conquered in your life, or I don't care if you fly fighter jets, which I think is totally badass. But if you've got another area that you're afraid to tackle, maybe it's the communication side, maybe it's getting in touch with your emotion side, maybe it's going to therapy and really digging into the issues from your past side, you've got to do those things to get to the next level. It's not because I say it, it's because it's your opportunity, because the only opportunities for growth are those things that make us feel uncomfortable. We've got to feel those uncomfortable feelings and forge forward anyway. And so I want to ask you, where is that for you? What are the things that you need to do to heal? So you're not one of those people arguing online, or one of the people that get turned into the memes, the triggered memes. If you ever go to the GIFs, right? And type in triggered and all the people that come up and you can see their anger and, maybe there's a context for it, but somewhere deep inside of us, we know that type of anger in a social situation where it's talking should never come up. It's because it's a loss of control. It's you're out of control and other people are in control of you and how you feel. They're pushing your buttons and they know how to do it oh so well. What are those things that you need to work on? What triggers you? Something I did recently is I went scuba diving in caverns when I was in Mexico. One of the reasons I did it is because I'm afraid of doing it. Wasn't super afraid of doing it, but it makes me a little uneasy. Scuba diving in general. Once you go 100 feet under the water, because it's a little sketchy, you're like, whoa, I'm 100 feet under the water here. If I've got to go back up quick, that's not happening. In fact, I don't know if I shared this or not. I don't remember, but I had a panic attack when I was in the cavern. And I told the cavern diver, the cavern instructor who I was with, and he took me out really fast, but my heart started beating uncontrollably, just like when I was reading that passage in biology. But guess what? I came back. I had that bad time. I came back. I did more diving. I did my advanced certification after that experience. I didn't give up. And I did it in part because I wanted to feel comfortable with the discomfort. I wanted to grow. I wanted to challenge myself. And not because I'm so special. It's because that's how human beings grow. That's how we're wired. That's how we get to the next level. And I want to tell you this. Every time you think that you're working on personal growth, but you're comfortable with doing it, you're fooling yourself, or at least shortchanging yourself. As they say, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Except here, we're not talking about risk like, necessarily diving 100 feet underwater or climbing on a rock wall 100 feet up in the air. We're talking about that emotional risk. And that can be, hey, let's go to therapy. Oh, God, I don't want to go to therapy. Oh, no, not therapy. Oh, we don't need marriage counseling. Let's just fix this on our own. We don't need someone coming in and getting in our life. And, yeah, you do. You need someone good, but yeah, you do. And the fact that you haven't even tried it and you're throwing it to the side, That's cowardice. That's not a logical analysis. That's not trying it and saying, you know what, that didn't work. I tried it. It didn't work. You were not even trying it. One of the things that I told my dad, I'm like, Dad, why did you never get therapy? I mean, you suffered your Jim was killed, he was kidnapped and murdered in a heinous way. Why didn't you ever get therapy for it? Why didn't you get therapy when all this stuff happened? I know I sound a bit, emotional right now, but I asked him in a calm way. I was really curious. And what he said was, he's like, oh, no, I don't want to dig up I don't want to dig up the past and relive those memories. I said, have you ever done therapy? He said, no. I said, then how do you know it's reliving the past? Because that's not what therapy is. I've been in therapy for a year. I've done therapy more. I've been in therapy for a year recently. I've done more therapy sessions than that. And at the end, he was finally ready to give it a chance. But unfortunately, his health faltered. And as you know, at the end of the story, he ended up dying. Are you going to wait till you are about to die to tap into your real potential, to step up and to take action in face of that discomfort, to overcome those bullshit stories that you tell this therapy is about digging up the past. So I can't do it. I don't want to dig up the past. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm a person with 140 IQ, which, I'm making fun of. I love my dad, but that's who he was, right? He did have a 140 IQ. Why do smart people do these stupid things? And it's, again, because of the lack of inner work. It was the answer. The thing that Joseph Campbell said, the cave that we're afraid to enter holds the treasure that we seek. It's a more poetic way of saying that the growth that we're seeking lies outside of our comfort zone. It's the places that we're afraid of going that hold the greatest potential for not just personal growth, but to experience life, to get that experience like we're really, truly living life. We're truly alive. And that feeling escapes so many people, but yet they shove food in their face. They've got a whole closet full of clothes. They've got a new car, but because they got rid of the other one they were leasing, and that doesn't do it. And to buy a new house, and then this whole coronavirus thing just throws everything into a loop, triggers us even more. Where is that cave? What is that cave in your life that you fear to enter, but that ultimately holds the treasure that you seek? That's the question I want to leave you with. And the answer to that question is the thing that I want you to work on taking action on. That's your biggest opportunity for growth. And if you truly want 2021 to be your year, no matter who's president or what virus is making the rounds around the world, making the rounds on human beings, that's the answer. That's the path forward. I love you. You can do this. In fact, for us to have the world that we want, it's a necessity that you do this. Not all of us will, but the ones who can, the ones who will, are the ones who are going to make the biggest difference, not just in the world, but in our families, in our communities. And isn't that what at least most of us really want? I think truly that's what we all want deep down inside. We all just want to have a good time. We all want love and have a good time and to enjoy life. That's the path forward. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Love you. Love you lots. Have an amazing week. Talk to you soon.